Hello, everybody. It's Carolina Marie here. I am your host of Free and on Fire, having you draw near to Christ and rise into your true identity so you can be on fire for what God has placed on your heart and bringing into the world. And today we have Morgan here, and she's going to be sharing her story. Thank you for being on the show, Morgan.
Thank you for having me. I just love what you're doing. And when I saw you on LinkedIn, I was like, I want to be a part of it. So I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited for everyone to just share or hear more so your story, but even more importantly, what it is that you do, because I just think it's amazing how you've infused faith and style and worthiness all together. So let's just dive in. I'd love for you to share what has been your journey, like your faith journey in your walk with God. What does that look like?
Ooh. My faith journey it's not ending, but I feel really good about where it is right now versus where it started. I grew up knowing that there was a power bigger than me, but just couldn't quite grasp, or the logistics of things didn't quite add up for me. And I just felt like a disconnect for a very long time. And what that means, I was going to church, but I didn't really feel like I had a personal relationship with God. And I spent so much of my childhood, my teenage years, my early 20s searching for something outside of myself. The next job, the next boyfriend, the next city. I was just hunting for my purpose, and didn't feel confident in being seen, or I didn't want to stand out, and just felt like everyone else had the answers to life that I didn't have, or just knew something that I didn't know. And it wasn't until I moved to Atlanta in 2012, found my church, Hillside True Center, in 2014, when things started to click for me, where I came to know God within me and understand the power and the love that He has. And that's when everything changed for me. Like my job, my career, the way I show up in the world, the way that I talk, the people in my life, like it was just, things fell into place because I learned who I was in my faith and who God made me to be.
Yeah. And how do you think that, like, leading up to that moment for that different experience, like what was going on specifically in life that had you maybe be in that position, or was something shared in a different way that it hit your heart in a different way, or where were you at in life that made you more open? Like what do you think played a role in that?
Always searching, Carolina. There's literally, it felt like a hole that I just couldn't, it would sit right here. And some of my girlfriends who've known me for a long time, I would describe it as like this walnut, like this pain, and of like, what's wrong with me? And it was, I started just searching when I got here to Atlanta. I was like, there's gotta be another way of life. I moved here with a now ex-boyfriend who lived here. My parents had lived here. I was in a job that I hated. And when the job got eliminated and the boyfriend got eliminated, you know how like God removes all the things that you think you need. And so when those got eliminated, I was like, there's has to be another way of life, that I can't keep living like this. And so I started exploring spirituality classes, and I explored a few different churches, when a woman who I've never seen since, a friend of a friend, said, oh, you should go to my church. And I've been going to now this church for 6 years. I've never seen her there since. I know it was an angel telling me to find this church. That's when, like, I knew I needed something else. And when I was open to it, because I was really at my lowest point. And, you know, like, we all have the stories of when He takes everything away from you and all you have is Him. That's when that's where the beauty comes.
Yeah, there's like, my story's similar. It's was like I'm not ashamed to say, like, I was desperate.
Absolutely.
I had, you know, the boyfriend, no boyfriend. I didn't have my own plate. All the things that I thought made me happy, having the right job, having my own place. It was just like a desperation. Like, I don't know what else to do. I've been doing personal development my whole life. That's not working. Like,
and it's like a desperation, also a guilt, because like you feel like you should like,
know.
Outside, like you said, you have the job, the maid, or like this really cool life. And I was living in cities like New York and San Francisco and working in these cool jobs So I felt guilty that I felt desperate. Like it was this horrible, horrible dichotomy that was happening.
Yeah. And the beauty in looking back on it, though, you can see that it's for those of us who do have like those knees hit the ground moments, and that's kind of where we find, you know, the saying like I hit rock bottom and found God was my rock at the bottom. But it's so true. I mean, I think the having your heart be in such a broken place actually, for me, the way I think about it is like, I think it was like the only way that for a little bit of light to be able to get into the brokenness of your heart, for him to actually be able to make it tender enough for you to hear and be open to him and his love for you.
Absolutely. To break me, to open me up, but also to get me out of the job hamster wheel that I was on, the boyfriend hamster wheel that I was on. Like, it took those things for me to live a different life when he took those things, so I could start living in my purpose. Because I would have just stayed miserable and thinking that was all there was to life, was job, new boyfriend, new city, new clothes, brunch with my girlfriends, and that's it. You know, like that was, yeah.
And then what happened after that? You know, especially with your relationship with him. Like, you talked a lot about, you know, finding happiness and finding all these things and all of these outside exterior things. What were some of the things that you learned in growing your relationship with Jesus?
The biggest thing that I learned was, for so long, I had heard in my head that there was something wrong with me. Like, I felt like, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? And, you know, you can manifest that. And to the point where the guy that I was living with, his thing that he would always ask me was, what is wrong with you? And that, so I was hearing that over and over in my head and then externally. And the biggest aha for me was that there was nothing wrong with me to begin with. Like, I had just forgotten who I was. And that was the unlock of like, oh, so that I don't have to hide. I have no shame, or I shouldn't have shame, because I'm no different or no better or no less special than anyone else, because there really is nothing wrong. Like, God made me the way that he wanted me to be in this life. And that just is when everything opened up.
Did that aha moment happen in a moment?
I wish I could. There was a moment where there's been a lot of moments, and of course, you know, as you evolve, you grow and learn more. But I've been exploring different spiritual mythologies and different practices, and in December of 2015, I went on a spiritual retreat by myself for my birthday. And I went to this shaman, actually. I was on this gorgeous retreat in Arizona, and this shaman did this like a clearing of me, of like just helping me relax. And he said to me, this really big aha that helped me break my chains was, from a family lineage perspective, your grandparents had to grow up and live like they were hiding. Your parents had to live like they were trying to blend in. Now your time to thrive. And that to me was like, oh my gosh, I can let go of all, like, it's a lot of women and people of color, we have trauma in our bones, and we think that there's something wrong with us because of how society treats us and how our families are, you know, living in fear in a lot of ways. And that moment of like, it's okay, it's your time to thrive, there's nothing wrong with you. I just bawled and booed and literally released that sense that I was like, I come from good stock. I come from people who made it, and that there's so much to be proud of. And how could there be anything wrong with me if I'm here and I made it?
Yeah. Wow. And then what happened after that?
I came back from Arizona, and 3 or 4 months later, it was like, okay, I need to do something else. I need to find a different way of life. Found my church in March of 2016. March of 20. I found my church by this point. I'm sorry, I work in retail, so like my years are all blurred together. Yeah. So I was always a year ahead. But I ended up quitting my job September of 2016, like that transformative time of end of 2015 into 2016 was when it was like, I gotta practice what I've been preached to, what I feel in my soul. I can't keep living like with this pain right here. God, show me what you want me to do. And that, the ultimate faith walk for me at the time was quitting my job and not knowing at all what was next, but literally doing that faith walk.
Yeah. What did it take for you to leave your job? Did that take a bit for you to get the courage to step out? Or
I tell everybody, God knows his children. God knows his children. And he knew that if I knew now what I knew then, I probably wouldn't do it. So I did it very blind. He kept me naive and in the dark about what I was in for. Yeah. So I kind of like I came to the real big conclusion in June, July, where I was so miserable and just so broken in so many ways. And I left in September, and I was not a saver. I was not doing the 9 to 5, 5 to 9 hustle life. Like I made the leap. I couldn't explain it to anyone because my parents were like, what do you mean? Like you're, this mid-manager level, like the world, I was literally working international development. So the world is yours. My team could understand it. So that was big for me. I knew I quote unquote wanted to work as a stylist, but it was a very vague thing. I didn't have a ton of clients. I just knew I had to go. And that was the one step at a time, like our daily bread, give us our daily bread. That's what that was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can relate to you on that
No,
too.
you can relate to that, right?
I would never advise anyone to jump without a net, so to speak, but it was just the way I had to leave. And
people ask me all the time, like, did you plan and like what would you do differently? And I said, like my story is very different than everyone else's story. Like this is what worked for me. I had a lot of lessons I had to learn and and that were meant for me to learn.
Exactly.
If you can stick it out and if you can do what you need to do, then do it. But my story was I had to get up out of there for my sake of my health and my sanity.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And it's like it's like exactly what you said. Our Father knows you are his child. He knows what you needed. And not only just for that, but like he uses all things for the good of those who love him. So even in everything that it was that you needed to go through, the mistakes and the pit and the highs it's all meant to, mold you into the character.
It's so awe-inspiring how everything works that way.
It's like crazy.
Just, isn't it just like you can't deny that there is a power bigger than us, that how your entire history and story and things that when I'm working with clients or when I was writing my book, like stories and things that were just like, oh, like that's why this happened for this moment right here.
Yeah.
And that's it's just amazing.
It is. Yeah. So you mentioned a little bit. And I just realized that I didn't even ask you to like formally introduce yourself.
Oh.
I totally missed that. Oh my goodness. So I mean, I don't know how many minutes we're in now, but I'll just add that later as like your title and everything at the beginning of the show so people know, but we'll get to it now. So you just want to share a little bit about what you do, because you mentioned that you wanted to get into styling, but yeah.
So I now, after spending 10 years in corporate retail, I am a full-time entrepreneur. I am a wardrobe stylist, speaker, and a new first-time author. So I help women understand and learn to love themselves through the power of clothes. I work with companies on honing executive presence and owning your executive style and image, and how do you show up for yourself in the most authentic way. And then I am the author of my first book, The Worthy Wardrobe, which is my love letter to women on how do you merge your spirituality, your faith with your closet and your style.
I love that. Thanks. I love that. And I just think and I'd love to share more about how you share about how you got to that, because we don't tend to think about our presence in our wardrobe. And we know that like if we feel pretty and put together, and it does something to our confidence, but the way that you weave in faith and worthiness along with as like foundational aspects to style, I just think is so unique. And now that I know, it's like oh gosh, you need to be everywhere.
Oh, thank you.
So
Thank
can you
you.
please share how you got yourself to that point, to seeing like that was a missing and a gap?
So it goes back to my story. So not feeling like I knew myself and loved myself. I couldn't love myself because I didn't realize that God loved me.
Yeah.
For most of my life, I was hiding. I was hiding behind baggy clothes, husky boys clothes, long cardigans. I didn't want to be seen, and I didn't want my insecurities to show. I love clothes. I worked in retail, and I would buy great clothes, but I didn't feel confident wearing them because I didn't want to draw attention to myself. And when I made the leap into entrepreneurship as a stylist, it's kind of ironic, because it was my time then to help women and myself learn to get seen and get visible and be confident in who they were. And clothes are just the byproduct of what you think about yourself. So that led into writing the book, because it was my story, but all of these other women that I've interviewed and clients, where I can't dress anyone. I couldn't dress myself until you know that you are loved and that you are worthy. Whatever you put on your body is just, it reflects what you think about yourself. And if you don't feel good, then clothes aren't going to look good on you.
And how did God use like his word to help guide you down that path to see that, like in whether it's for your own personal journey or for like what it is that you're doing now? Like how did that have an impact on you?
There was a moment, one of my few clients before I left corporate America, I will tell you this, for a long time I ran away from, I thought my work in clothing and image was superficial. And I was like, oh, like I work at these corporate offices for companies that make clothes, like there's nothing deep about this. And I had like a guilt. And when I started styling before I left my job, there was a woman who called me and said, the reason I'm calling you is because I caught myself in my conference room. I'm the only Black female in a sea of white male IT consultants. And I realized I was wearing black every day to blend into the conference room chairs. I did not want to be seen. And I needed to change my life and change that about my life. And I was driving home after this session when she told me that, I was like, oh my God, this is my ministry. This is how I help women feel good and learn to love themselves. And that's catapulted me and renewed a passion in me to help women. Like, this is not just about going shopping for clothes. This is me helping women literally get seen and not blend into the background and know that their voice and their experience and and who they are matters.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Is there anything else you want to share about, about your work, about your book? Congratulations.
Thank you. I have it right here. I just got them in the mail.
Yay!
It's the best feeling ever. The Worthy Wardrobe. And I tell people, this is a really good book, and not because I wrote it, but because God wrote it through me.
Amen.
I interviewed 70 women, their stories from my clients. I've created an online Facebook group that those of you who are watching are more than welcome to join. It's free to join, and we meet every week to talk about the book. And these collective group of stories have made this book a love letter where we talk about, I share my story of not feeling good enough. I talk about my foundations of faith and what I believe about God and the universe and how he always provides for us. I talk about sexiness and how a lot of us don't feel confident in our bodies or attention from men because of a safety issue, and how do you show up feeling confident in who you are and what sexiness means. Professionalism and feeling like you have to blend in or be small, cleaning out your closets and how that has related to God. If you're hoarding, you're not trusting God to bring you in abundance. So it's all things related to your wardrobe, but from this lens of worthiness and also spirituality, because God's in everything. It's not just going to church every Sunday. It's how you live and how you dress and how you show up for yourself.
Yeah. Amazing. Is there any specific piece of scripture that's just been really special to you on your journey?
I have a lot, and it was hard to pick when you asked me this question in advance. I literally had to. There's one that's a little funny that I'm going to share where Jesus talks about not putting new wine into old wineskins, and I refer that to like don't put your boobs into like old bras, and that is something like take care of your chest, like treat your chest like fine wine. But my favorite scripture that for me is a motivation for me to do the work I do is 2 Corinthians 8:9, and it reads, God is able to bless you abundantly so that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in your every good work. And knowing that the work that I'm doing is of good and of service to other women, he's taking care of me. And that's what's so important.
What I do love about your work too, and I'm a huge proponent, and I just feel God has been placing all of these incredible women on my path who they're so creative. Like God has put these gifts in us to express them so creatively. We don't realize, like, we are all inherently creative as our Creator is. And I don't think anybody would normally maybe think about a stylist coming from the viewpoint of faith, and how even it's like that is infused in, and how important it is to how important faith can be, and our worthiness, and knowing who we are and our identity, and how that has an impact on that. So I just love that it can show the viewers and show women just like there's nothing that God cannot infuse and will have us bring our gifts to bring his goodness to. Because
also, I'm sorry.
no, because you just talked about like the guilt and thinking like, styling was superficial. And it's like, no. Like all of it is art and creativity. And I could imagine that maybe some women would feel, because I've heard it before in other people sharing that, like, I'm really into fashion or makeup, and thought that that's like superficial. And it's like, no.
No, it's not. And I've come to thank you for that, because the creativity aspect is we all have our gifts, and all of our gifts are used to contribute to the kingdom. And for me, I even write in the book, God doesn't want his children running around being of service looking a mess. Like, you have to look like you were loved and that you were taken care of. So invest in he made us spirit, mind, and body, and your body and your image matter. So you can't be a minister or a missionary for his work if you are looking like God ain't taking care of you. Like, you have to
gotta represent, right?
You got to represent. You are a child of the kingdom. Put your crown on, whatever that means for you, and go out into the world and do the work that you're called to do.
Yeah. I love that, because I myself, I remember I had a moment where, I was like, I don't know what it is that you're calling me to do, God, but if you're wanting me to be Mother Teresa, like, I feel bad. Like, I don't want to be out in the middle of somewhere and like not be able to wear the shoes that I want to wear. And I was like, and I know that sounds so superficial, but I remember having that conversation and just kind of like hearing from her, like, well, I never said any of that was bad. Like, who said that?
Marianne Williamson writes in Return to Love. She tells, I think it's Return to Love or the Law of Divine Compensation, where she's working with a musician, and she asked that musician, like, well, what has God called you to do? And he says, like, I'm scared to ask because I'm scared that God's going to make me an accountant. And she's like, do you really think God would make you an accountant if you're not good with numbers? Like, you're supposed to use your gifts in the way that you were given them to be of service. And I think, sometimes we think of ministry is one thing, or being of service as only looking like a certain thing. But like you said, there's so much creativity, and it's amazing how God uses gifts in so many different ways.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Is there anything that you want to leave with the women who are watching this?
Each and every one of you is worthy of being seen, no matter your height, your weight, your size, your shape, your color, your background, what you've lived through. You matter, and you are worthy. You are worthy. You are worthy.
Thank you. And where can everyone find you?
Website is morganwider.com. You can find the book, The Worthy Wardrobe, on Amazon and wherever else books are sold. And Instagram, I am Morgan Wider Style.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Morgan, thank you so much for just sharing your story, doing what you're doing, bringing some style and sexy to the kingdom, because we all know it's good.
Thank you for doing what you're doing, for providing the platform for creatives and women to share their work that God has given them. You know, like it's one thing to create the work, but God is also gives you other people to help you make his work visible. So thank you for walking in your purpose.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I just bless you with everything that you're doing, and I'm sure we'll be keeping in contact.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for watching this week's episode, and we'll see you again next week.